This is the injury report presented by NYU Langone Health. The Mets are a little banged up in the early weeks of spring training. Second baseman Jeff McNeil has been shut down from hitting for a couple of days with soreness in his left bicep. In today's injury report, we'll speak with Dr. Guillem Gonzalez-Lomas on if McNeil's soreness could possibly keep him out of the season opener. Doc, thanks for hopping on with this. You're going to have to talk me through this one because as a former football player that played through many injuries, I'm wondering how bicep soreness made it on injury report. So break it down for us. How does a player get diagnosed with this injury, and is it more serious than what it sounds?
Yeah, well, Brandon, thanks for having me on. And I hear you. You know, this kind of diagnosis is really what we call more of like a placeholder diagnosis, right? It's a description of symptoms more than an actual diagnosis of an injury. So the issue here is players presenting with some symptoms. We want to make sure that it doesn't extend and become something worse. And so we label it, what the player is experiencing, just to make sure that, we've got something in writing. And then, we evaluate the player, have them progress. But it's really more of a preventative approach, making sure this doesn't lead to something worse.
So when we talk about Kodai Senga and how he's kind of out for a couple weeks with fatigue in that shoulder, now we're talking about something that's kind of preventative when we talk about Jeff McNeil's injury. Are they working too hard down there in Port St. Lucie?
Well, I think especially in Jeff McNeil's case, I mean, here's somebody who was dealing with an injury for a while, starting at the end of last year. And so this is someone that you're going to want to make sure you advance carefully because they have already been doing rehab. They've been, working through something else. So as soon as you see signs, especially if it's in that same arm, you want to make sure that you're giving them, an adequate amount of rest. And remember, in terms of work, it's very individualized. Every player is going to need a different amount of intensity to ramp up for the season. So this is, just I think about the medical team being very thoughtful, judicious, making sure that this doesn't progress to being anything more significant.
You mentioned him coming off of an injury. He's coming off a partially torn UCL in his left elbow. Do you think that the elbow injury he's coming off of kind of played a part in him injuring the bicep? Could this be like a overcompensation injury type thing?
It's very hard to make that connection. I think the sort of bigger picture is, here's someone who wasn't able to play. They were rehabbing. Now they're getting some reps in, right? They're in training. They're starting to ramp up the intensity, and they're experiencing some symptoms. And again, it could be that arm. It could be in the other arm, but it's someone who had been out for a while who's now coming back. So I don't think you can say that there's any direct connection between one injury and the other. I just think you're talking about someone who's increasing their intensity, trying to get back into game shape, experiencing some symptoms. And, the better part of valor in most of these cases is to respect that, especially if you think about, what you have to do in baseball. Very explosive sport. Hitting a ball, truly one of the most challenging activities that a human being can do. I know that I couldn't even come close to that. So these guys are really exerting themselves to the limit. Anytime they have some symptoms, especially in the context of coming back from an injury, regardless of where that injury is, it's just important to titrate that activity. And if they show any symptoms, dial things back a little bit, give them some time to get back to a pain-free range of motion and activity level.
So there are people out there like myself who are going to read or hear bicep soreness and say, get out there and play some baseball. Let's say that he tries to gut it out, get out there, play through it. What could happen to him?
Well, listen, the body is very smart, and it gives us warning signs anytime, we have pain. it's telling us something's up. Now, all of us work out and might experience something called delayed onset muscle soreness. You worked out really hard on your biceps yesterday, and today or tomorrow you might be sore. But usually that pain, it gets better with activity and it goes away, more quickly. In a case where pain is lingering for a little bit, that might be just it might be a tiny little muscle strain. It might be something that is relatively inconsequential, but you have to let the body heal that. And I think that's the approach here. So, the days of gutting it out, I would say those are probably long gone. At the level these guys are playing right now, you really want to respect the body. They're pushing the limit. They're redlining it. And anytime there are symptoms, you want to make sure that you respect those symptoms and treat accordingly, whether that's with some activity modification, maybe a little change in their training, some additional rehab, but just make sure that you don't let this become something greater.
Doc, I'm glad you said the famous words. The days of gutting it out are long gone. It's about working smarter, not harder. And when we're talking about Jeff McNeil, we're talking about a dude that's won an MLB batting title before. So how long until Jeff McNeil is back to being the Jeff McNeil? When's he going to cook again, Doc?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I wish I had that crystal ball power for every aspect of my life. I think this is just a case where you look at his past performance, and obviously there's a very good chance that he can get back to that. And right now, it's just a matter of giving it some time, not putting timelines on it. That's something that can often box you in. Both as the medical team managing a player and as a player themselves. So can't give you a timeline, but I would say as long as he's progressing adequately, this is something that should likely resolve in the next little bit.
Well, their home opener is March 28th against the Brewers, so the Amazons are hoping that Jeff McNeil is back to 100%. Doc, thanks for hopping on with us. You educated our fan base, but you really educated me and shut me up, so thank you.
Happy to be on. Thanks for having me.